On Sunday, September 18, Reverend Kristen and Stu Wallace gave an interactive presentation on Witnessing Abundance, Emmaus 2016 Stewardship Campaign. This slideshow presents the highlights of that presentation for those who could not attend. In small groups, we considered several passages from Scripture that related to giving. For each, the group was asked to consider 3 questions. What does this passage say about giving? How does this passage make you feel? What wisdom do you hear in this passage for us today? The first passage was from Leviticus. All tithes from the land, whether the seed from the ground or the fruit from the tree, are the Lord's. They are holy to the Lord. If persons wish to redeem any of their tithes, they must add 1/5 to them. All tithes of herd and flock, every 10th one that passes under the shepherd's staff, shall be holy to the Lord. Let no one inquire whether it is good or bad, or make substitution for it. If one makes substitution for it, then both it and the substitute shall be holy and cannot be redeemed. Here we see a definition of what the righteous person gives. It's a tithe, a percentage of what one earns. We also see that one should not judge another's tithe. What does this say to us today? How does this make us feel? The second passage is also from the Hebrew Bible, Deuteronomy. When you have finished paying all the tithe of your produce in the 3rd year, which is the year of the tithe, giving it to the Levites, the aliens, the orphans, and the widows, so that they may eat their fill within your towns, then you shall say before the Lord your God, I have removed the sacred portion from the house, and I have given it to the Levites, the resident aliens, the orphans, and the widows, in accordance with your entire commandment that you have commanded me. I have neither transgressed nor forgotten any of your commandments. Here the Jews are commanded to tithe to the temple, to the Levites, but also to give to the poor. Again, how do you feel about this passage? What does this say for us today? And from the New Testament in Matthew, Jesus said to him, If you wish to be perfect, go, sell your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me. Here there's a different flavor. Sell your possessions and follow Jesus. What a radical idea. How does this make us feel? What wisdom can we take from this? Or from Luke, For life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Jesus is asking us to think about where our priorities are. During the meeting, one member said she was reminded of going to Target and seeing some new placemats that would look just perfect on her dining room table. But then, she said, I thought, could the $30 better be spent on cooking oil for Cho? Where are our priorities in our lives? And Matthew, Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Again, the priorities. How do we feel when we hear this? What does this, written 2,000 years ago, say to us in the 21st century? One of the themes in the more unfamiliar texts from the Hebrew Bible focuses on tithing, giving 10% of everything to the Levite temple and to God. Tithing is very traditional biblical language that encourages people to give 10% of their earnings to the church. In the United Church of Christ, you seldom hear about a 10% tithe, but more often people talk about a modern tithe, which encourages people to consider giving a percentage of their income, usually 5%, to the church and then stretch and give another 5% to Helping Hands organizations in the community and around the world. What does that mean for us? Well, if your family made $100,000, you would tithe $5,000 to your church and $5,000 to other charities. Is that realistic? Well, another way to think about this is tithing on net income. For the average family with a $100,000 income but paying 35% in taxes, that might mean tithing $3,300 to the church. Naturally, every person and family is different, and we all have different financial needs and goals. College, mortgages, retirement savings, these all eat away at our discretionary income. But the concept of tithing does help when we're thinking about where charitable giving falls in our budget. Is it towards the top or the bottom of our priorities? As we consider how much to pledge to our church, it's reasonable to wonder, how much do others pledge? And the answer is, dum-pum-pum-pum, the average pledge is about $2,600. That's about 2% of the average family income in Vienna. Of course, there's a huge difference in income from one household to another, but you want to think about this in tithing terms, you can easily calculate your own. This chart shows you a little more information about Emmaus pledging. As you can see, about 25% of members pledge up to $1,500. 43% pledge between $1,500 and $3,000, and 31% pledge over $3,000. For some of us, tithing may not simply be financial. It may be contributions of that which is even more precious than money, our time. In the spirit of our new governance structure, where we have the opportunity to contribute our services for specific activities and events, we are invited to think about how much of our time we are willing to contribute to building the church community we aspire to, and what types of contributions we would like to offer to the community. We are sending out a stewardship survey to each household and would invite you to prayerfully consider not only your pledge, but in what other ways you are called to help Emmaus grow and thrive. But what has this got to do with abundance? Have you noticed that lately we have been awash in children in worship? There are hundreds of them, thousands of them. Well, there's a whole lot of them anyway. Emmaus is being blessed with abundance. We have an abundance of children. We have an abundance of visitors. We have an abundance of new members. We have an abundance of faith formation activities. We have an abundance of exciting new activities and programs. It is an exciting time to be at Emmaus. The way that we are approaching our hopes for the giving this year at Emmaus is that we see the world, our ministry, and creation through a lens of abundance rather than of scarcity. Beetles have one job in creation. God made beetles to help dead things decay. They have one solitary function, and God could easily have made one kind of beetle, but instead God made a plethora of beetles. There are hundreds and hundreds of kinds of beetles, each different in their color, size, and shapes, but all made to help dead stuff decompose. That's a sign of abundance. All around us there are signs of abundance. Look at this field of wildflowers. It's filled with colors, shapes, and we can imagine that it must be filled with smells. Another sign of God's abundance. In the fall, the leaves on the trees die and fall off. God could have made all the leaves turn brown, but instead we have brown, red, yellow, and orange leaves, an abundance of colors every fall. We live in a culture that often focuses on scarcity, yet the creation that we are part of and called to witness is one of abundance. The abundance of God's creation is all around us. Our hope is that we can bear witness to that abundance as we hear God's mission for us in the world.